You're watching the Basin PBS Midland City Council at-large debate, live from the Anmore Family Studio. Submit your questions via the Basin PBS Facebook page.
Good evening and welcome to Basin PBS. We are coming to you live from the Anmore Family Studio. I'm Becky Ferguson, a member of the Basin PBS board, and on behalf of the board, thank you for joining us tonight. We are honored to host this debate for the special election for the at-large position on the Midland City Council. The position became open with the January 30th death of Dan Corrales. Besides serving as councilman, Corrales was a prosecutor, a PBS board member, and an active community volunteer. He was first elected as city councilman at-large in 2022. With his sudden passing, the city council, as required by law, called a special election to replace him. The winner of this election will serve the remainder of the at-large term through January of 2025. This position will be on the ballot again in November of 2024. Basin PBS is known for its quality shows in both education and entertainment. We bring you tonight's program as a part of our mission to educate and inform. It is made possible by our members and the generous sponsorship of the Anwar family. Tonight we have a small studio audience, and we are thrilled to have all of you, our Basin PBS supporters, watching at home on channels 13 or 36, or live on our Facebook page, where we encourage you to submit questions for our candidates. We will do our best to ask them live tonight. Joining me at the moderator's desk is Mary Kate Hamilton of CBS 7.
Thank you very much, Becky. Tonight's debate will be 90 minutes in length with one 2-minute break. These questions were developed by a small team of representatives from the public and our Basin PBS Facebook page, where the public was invited to submit their questions. We'll begin tonight's debate by giving each candidate, in order of how they're listed on the ballot, 2 minutes for opening remarks. After these opening remarks, the moderators will pose a series of general questions. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to each question. In the event a candidate's answer to a question invokes the name or the policy position of one or more opponents, the moderators, at our sole discretion, can give the referenced opponent 30 seconds to respond. It is important to note an individual candidate may also be asked a direct question because of a statement or a policy position he or she has made during their campaign. The candidate will have 1 minute to answer that direct question. The 30-second rebuttal rule will still apply. At the conclusion of tonight's questions, each candidate will have 2 minutes for closing statements. We would like to remind everyone that this is a live broadcast, so flash photography, making loud noises, or other disruptive actions or comments are not allowed. Now let's meet our 5 candidates for Midland City Council at large. Mr. James Bull Henry, Mr. Eric Davidson, Mr. John Burkholder, Mr. Cheston Blank, and Mr. Ben Roberts. Welcome, candidates. We will now begin our opening remarks. We are going to start with you, Mr. James Bull Henry.
Thank you. Good evening, Midland, and good evening. Thank you to the Basin PBS for having this debate tonight, and our moderators for being here. The rest of the candidates, thank y'all for being here as well. My name is James Raymond Henry. My friends call me Bull. It's a nickname that was said once and stuck for a long time. I am the next Midland City Councilman in the at-large seat. I'm the best candidate for the position due to my long-standing time in Midland, 44 years. I know the people, I know Midland, I know West Texas, I know the oil and gas industry very well. I know the ups and downs that West Texas has and the people that it brings. I'm real familiar with multi-departmental agencies. I'm familiar with all of the local governments, worked extensively in my career in Midland with the Midland Sheriff's Department, the Police Department, the local governments, agencies and groups. I believe that I can do the best job for Midland because of my extensive knowledge of these groups and the city, and to keep things where they need to be as far as tax rates low and keep the citizens in the best interest and make sure that they have the best city councilmen that they deserve. Thank you.
Mr. Eric Davidson.
Thank you for having me. I'm Eric Davidson, and I'm running for the City Council at-large seat. When I think about the current state of Midland, I'm immediately filled with excitement. I see a growing community filled with people that want to give back. And I'm running for City Council because I want a city where my children can come back, raise their kids, and have a family. A city that's focused on job creators and making sure that we can drive businesses here. And a city that's willing to defend our oil and gas industry, which is the backbone of our economy and crucial to our national security. How do we do this? We do this by staying strong to our conservative Midland values that built our economy strong, and by building public-private partnerships to help improve the quality of life here in this town. I want to be part of the solution, and I feel my background has given me the opportunity to be a leader on City Council. My wife, Casey, and I moved here in 2017 and immediately fell in love with this town. We've had the opportunity to work with nonprofits, be on boards, and be members at our Church of Redeemer Midland. And just recently, we've had the opportunity to foster 2 young girls here in this community. We love this town, and I want to help steward it into its next chapter. As an engineer, solving problems is what I do, and I want to solve the tough issues in this town, like our roads and infrastructures, and enhancing our public safety. I am the only one up here that oversees a business unit for a publicly traded company. I have years of experience of balancing complicated budgets, and I'm ready to use those skill sets to balance our budgets, all while keeping essential services running here in this town and keeping our property taxes low. As a father of 4, I am passionate about the quality of life here in town. That's why we need to foster public-private partnerships to build parks, attract businesses, and clean up this city, all while keeping our taxes low. I would love for all of y'all watching tonight to go visit my website, look at my information, and see my goals. I'm honored to be endorsed by leaders like former Mayor Patrick Payton and former Mayor Wes Perry, and I would love for you to join our growing team. I would be honored to have y'all's vote on May the 4th.
Thank you very much. Mr. John Burkholder.
Sure. Thanks, everybody, for having me. I'm John Burkholder, and I'm running for City Council at large. I'm a native West Texan, and I have a vested interest in this community. My wife and I have been married for 15 years. We have 3 wonderful children. I teach Sunday school at our church for 4th grade boys, and I teach and perform Taekwondo in my spare time at Midland Martial Arts. This city means a lot to me, and I've dedicated a lot of time to this city. I currently hold the position of Burkholder Holdings, or the president of Burkholder Holdings, LP, and I also serve as director of Ranch Water Resources, which is a water sourcing company that we provide to our water for the oil and gas industry. One of my best qualities is my leadership capabilities. It has served me well for many, many years. I've had the pleasure of running successful businesses for 23 years. I've also been able to serve in leadership roles in Fortune 500 companies, oil and gas service companies, and currently as a manager of our property in Ward County. I've managed hundreds and thousands of people throughout my tenure as a leader in these particular industries. And let me tell you, all these people, they have very diverse characteristics and personalities, and you learn how to be a very effective leader whenever you have to manage those kinds of personalities. I've always led with a servitude heart. I've always led with a conservative mind, and I've always led with principles of honesty and integrity. I currently serve in this city as a planning and zoning commissioner proudly, and I also recently graduated from Midland, we will be having the graduation from Midland 101, which is a fantastic program put on by the city that allows individuals to go through the city, learn every single department, how they run and who runs those organizations. I've dedicated my time to this city, and I want to dedicate my time as the next city council member for Midland. Thank you.
Thank you. Your opening statement, Mr. Blank.
Hello, my name is Cheston Blank, and what motivated me to run was that I wasn't optimistic about the direction that Midland was going, and I don't believe that anyone in the city leadership was focused on the issues that I sought as the most important. Mainly is that people simply can't afford to live in Midland. People are struggling to make ends meet, and a lot of that, the city can do, I know for a fact the city can do a lot to alleviate that, such as alleviating some of the regulations. Yeah.
Thank you, Cheston. Mr. Ben Roberts.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Ben Roberts. I'm running for at-large city council position. I 44 years old. I've been married to my wife, Jessica, for 23 years, a little over 23 years. We have 3 wonderful children. Our youngest will be graduating from Legacy High this May. About 19 years ago, I made Jesus the Lord and Savior of my life, and I haven't looked back since. Inside of church, I've served for years as a deacon, as an elder, as an adult Sunday school teacher, and various other positions. In 2018, I was brought onto the church and hired as the finance director of True Light Christian Fellowship in Midland, and I still serve there today, to this day. Outside the church, I serve in many different capacities, a few of them being First Priority, which is a student-led Bible study inside of our high schools and junior highs. I also serve yearly on the Life Chain, which is a public demonstration against abortion. Recently, I've been campaigning for the removal of pornographic books in our libraries, specifically the Midland County Library. It is past time for the citizens to stand up and hold our leaders accountable for not wanting to protect the children. And also, I was the only one of the candidates that showed up a few months ago to protest against the all-ages drag show that we had here in Midland. The moral quality of our city is very important to me. I intend to serve the citizens of Midland with decency and with a conservative attitude. I may say some things tonight. We've had several of these forums that don't sound like something a politician would say, and that's because I'm not a politician. I have zero interest in pursuing a further office. I want to use this time to serve the city of Midland well, as best as I can, for a couple of terms and hand it over to the next generation. My name is Ben Roberts, and I appreciate y'all.
Thank you all very much for your opening statements. And without further ado, I think we're going to get into some questions. First things first, the Midland City Council works with and oversees many different departments within the city. How can the council balance the needs of all of these agencies and make sure each one's needs is met? Mr. Henry, we're going to start with you.
I think the first thing is that they work together and learn to work together for the common goal. For instance, I'm going to just bring up the Midland Police Department. Right now it's, I can't think of a better word, maybe chaotic with the situation that we're going on. There's just things within our departments that, I've been real big, if you've seen my site about parks and recreation and the needs for there. There's just needs all over Midland, and it's important that we sit together as a group and collectively discuss these ideas without getting angry, without getting upset, name calling. There's a positive solution to every problem. I believe that fully, and I think if we sit down and come to the table and agree to disagree is one of the most important things we can do, because there are so many strong issues, especially right now. Whoever inherits this council seat is inheriting some situations, and so they need to be open-minded and come in with a positive attitude to try to resolve the things that are before the council.
Mr. Davidson?
Yeah, thanks for the question. When I look at the city council, I see collaboration as a key aspect in helping run this city. We have multiple organizations through this town, like the MPO, the MDC, that we can work with and utilize to make sure that we're keeping our taxes low and we're addressing a lot of the issues that we're having. Let's face it, we have a lot of issues whenever it comes to our road in this city. We need to make sure that we are communicating and collaborating with every available option. TxDOT's about to spend $1.3 billion between 37-mile stretch of interstate between Midland and Odessa. We're about to spend $3.6 million extending Wadley out. We need to make sure that whenever we're making these investments, that we're doing everything possible to keep our taxes low and work with every available organization, and that starts at the city council level.
Mr. Burkholder?
Sure. So relationships are key. I've spent the last year in the city working with local officials, going through Midland 101, acquainting myself with all the different departments, the different department heads, who's responsible for what in the city. So whenever I get into the seat, I can hit the ground running. And again, it is extremely important to have these relationships. We have 5 taxable entities that we have to have relationships with to make sure that we're producing the best results possible. As some of the other candidates talked about, we have a lot of other organizations too that we work with in this city. And it's all part of an intricate puzzle that needs to fit together. And creating those relationships are going to be key. Involving yourself in all of those different departments are going to be key. And honestly, taking the time to be able to understand these things is key. And that's one of the things with my particular position. I can spend time in the city. I can spend time working with those relationships and working these agreements and helping in ways that some of the other candidates can't. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Blank.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes, I can. The Midland City Council works with and oversees many departments in the city. How can the council balance the needs of all of these agencies and make sure each one's needs is met?
I was pleasantly surprised when I heard all of you as candidates say the same thing, because that's what I was going to say. The departments need to work together, right? They simply don't talk to each other. And what I would add is that I have personal experience with this. When I was trying to, investigate problems, see what I can do, like the people you thought would talk to each other, they don't talk to each other, So the bus company doesn't talk to the traffic people. The traffic people don't really talk to the planning and zoning, and the planning and zoning doesn't really talk to the school district, because apparently the school district has its own Department of Transportation. So all these things are handled by different people. There's not a lot of cross communication, and that leads to a lot of problems, with how the city works. So that's what I would say.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Roberts.
I agree with Cheston that the city lacks a comprehensive plan to bring all these entities together. It was mentioned earlier about the police force. Depending on who you ask in the city, we're missing between 40 and 200 police officers. And that's a big gap. That's a problem that we need to solve, to figure out before we start throwing money at a situation or before we start trying to solve the problem, figuring out what actually is the problem. Budgets are a tricky thing because everybody thinks that their portion of the pie is the most important portion, and that's not always the case. And so it is a delicate situation that you have to work with other council people and the mayor and such to make these things happen, but it is doable.
Thank you. Public-private partnerships have been a major talking point and at times a point of contention in this city council. The city turned down $50 million in private funds for Hogan Park that now falls on taxpayers. What is your opinion on the utilization of private dollars on public projects? And we'll start with you, Mr. Davidson.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So when I look at the catalyst of what really drove me to really start looking at the city council and looking at the local level, Hogan Park was a big aspect of that. I looked at that as a transformative project on that side of town, and we're getting private $50 million in private funding to help transform this part of our town. And it just behooved me that we couldn't come to an agreement and finish a deal to get this done. The city council needs to be good stewards of every tax dollar. And that means that we need to form public-private partnerships to improve the quality of life here in this town. We have a $167 million budget, and every cent of that budget needs to be used to provide a better quality of life for all of our citizens, to be used on roads, to be used on infrastructure, to be used for our police force and fire department. We need to lean on public-private partnerships to make sure whenever it comes to quality of life aspects in this town and great transformative projects that we are willing to do it, and it's an absolute no-brainer.
Thank you. Mr. Burkholder?
Sure. So private-public partnerships are an economic tool to be used sparingly. The thing is that there's debt involved, whether it be private debt or public debt. And they can provide some quality projects. They can bring capital in to build projects. They can bring expertise in as far as finance, as far as project management. A perfect example of that is the Pioneer Water deal that saved taxpayers $130 million and provided clean water when needed during droughts. But if you're going to look at private partnerships, you need to understand that we need good governance principles in place. The first thing is you need to put people first and ask them, is this something truly that the people need and want? And is there transparency to where they understand what they're receiving and what they're giving up? Second of all, you need to make sure that you have the right people in place. If you don't have the right people in place to negotiate these contracts, they can end up on the wrong side. And so there needs to be transparency with the negotiators and the PPP partners as well. And then finally, you need to make sure that you assess the debt properly to make sure you're not debt heavy.
Thank you, Mr. Burkholder. Mr. Blank?
I would have to apologize on my particular lack of knowledge on this subject. I haven't been really following much about the situations regarding the MDC and private partnerships for a while, but I was initially motivated, to run, partly because of the decision to fund the hotel. What I would say is that yes, transparency, oversight, and to think real critically about these projects. I don't think. What I think I would add is that the city leadership needs to not just blindly follow things that sounds good. Try to criticize it. Try to pick it apart on your own self. Have some self-criticism. In that way, we can build. They can build a plan that is more and more closer to what's best financially. Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Roberts.
So speaking specifically about the Hogan Park situation, that was a real point of contention for the citizens of Midland. I don't think anybody has a problem with private partners sending the city money to do a certain thing. That's the whole basis behind a public-private partnership, is that the city can't pay for a thing, so the private sector helps out in that endeavor. The problem with the Hogan Park issue that, as far as I understand, is that they were trying to give $50 million for a thing, and then it was going to end up costing the city over $300 million, over $30 million over a certain number of years. Well, if the city didn't have the money to pay for the $50 million, what makes you think they're going to come up with the other part? So it seems like we always get the bad end of the deal on that deal. So Mr. Chester mentioned the Hotel Santa Rita that's coming. Why do we have to spend all of our tax money for a private hotel and not a public good?
Thank you.
Mr. Henry.
I think the private-public partnership can be a crucial, important part of the whole picture as it comes to be. When you've got private monies that want to come in and help out the community and put monies toward things like Hogan Park and other projects that tax dollars just aren't quite covering. I think you need to take a close look at them, but remember, a close look needs to be full transparency over whatever the situation is, that the monies are coming in genuinely with the integrity and openness, whatever the project may be, and that it's not just something they're trying to get in for some agenda or someone else's purpose. But I believe if it's a true private entity that wants to come in and put money and funds into the community for a positive purpose, I do believe it's an important part of the picture for sure.
Quality of life is a buzzy term, and it's often discussed here in Midland, especially as our population gets younger and our parks and buildings get older. So what is quality of life to you, and how would you tackle quality of life projects? Mr. Burkholder, we're going to start with you.
Sure. Quality of life projects is our family fun projects and things that are going to draw people into Midland. The average median age in Midland is around 32 years old, and we have younger families that are coming in, and we need to provide places and things for them to do and go. I'm proud to say that Midland is generating around $12 million a year in oil royalties, which are going directly to parks, which will be able to fund Beal Park. And as we see some of these new soccer fields put in and some developments at Beal Park, I've also encouraged the city to not forget about the parks that we currently have in place, like Hogan Park. It's very dilapidated in a lot of areas and needs a lot of attention. So as we're bringing in and looking at new ideas, we also need to make sure that we are utilizing the parks that we have here and making them a place where these young families want to go. So we need to continue to take care of what we have, and as we take care of what we have and develop into new things, we need to continue to create new fun ideas for people to enjoy here in Midland.
Thank you. Mr. Blank.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, I can. Quality of life is often discussed here in Midland, especially as our population gets younger and our parks and buildings get older. What is quality of life to you, and how would you tackle quality of life projects?
Quality of life is, not just for recreation. There's actually a lot of practical benefits when it comes to public spaces and public parks. For example, they act as storm drains. They absorb the water, and they prevent flooding. One thing that I would like to add is that, I have lots of ideas about this, but parks doesn't have to be, instead of focusing on one part of the city, why not focus on how we make the entire city beautiful? How do we, how can we focus on how infrastructure that integrates, that's beautiful, and that, so that, because not all parks are a very efficient use of land. And what I'll say, and this will foreshadow many other arguments I'll say, is that we need to stop building new things and focus on what we have. You know, we can't afford to be this far out and just, new. Take out what we have, so yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Roberts.
I do want to commend the city on building the new splash pad over at Centennial Plaza. That's a new park, if you will, that you can bring your family out to. I will agree with the other candidates that we do need to pay attention to the things that we already have. There seems to be a disparity in Midland where District 2, which is largely east side and south side, those parks get largely neglected, where the west side and north side parks get taken care of more. Partly because they're new and more people go to them, but Hogan Park's been in this city for a long time, and it's terrible that it's in such bad shape and in such disarray. So that's one of those things that the first question you asked, where we had to balance the budget and figure out how much money we can actually put towards these things, but we should be looking at that closely.
Thank you. Mr. Henry?
I mean, quality of life means so much. It's such a broad topic. It can mean so much for some. For some, it could be just having a nice place to go walk around the park. A Street, the Duck Park is enough for them. For others, it's having a nice restaurant to go to. For others, it's having a water park to go to. When I moved to Midland, we had 2 water parks back in the day, and that was cool, and it was part of that quality of life picture. But also, I see it as safe highways. A place where you can get out on the road and drive safely and feel comfortable. You can walk in your neighborhood and feel comfortable that it's a safe place to be. For some people, I talk to a lot of people in my neighborhood, that's their quality of life, is that neighborhood walk every evening with their family or their pets or whatever. So it's just a broad topic, and I think we need to look at all the aspects of it and what it means for everyone, and then put the money in place for the things that can make people feel the most happiest. So they don't leave Midland for quality of life. We want to keep them here and keep their dollars here as well.
Thank you. And Mr. Davidson?
As I mentioned earlier, I'm a father of 4, so quality of life is a big aspect, and it's a big thing behind my campaign. When I think of quality of life, I think of parks. I think of private partnerships that can help bring businesses in. So there's a lot of different aspects. I like to think of transformative projects that we have, like the Hotel Santa Rita that's going to be coming downtown, that's going to be bringing in and driving in a revitalization of downtown. Also think of quality of life projects like the Northwest expansion of the YMCA. They're directly addressing a childcare gap that we have in this city, and it's going to provide a better quality of life for the citizens up there, for the senior citizens, and then going to allow a place that's going to be able to help take care of this childcare gap that we have all throughout the Permian Basin. Also think of the private citizens that are willing to do projects like the zoo, the preserve, the Summit Center, Green Acres. We need to make sure that we support these private citizens, and whenever they're using their funding, we want to make sure that we can partner with them to provide the infrastructure to help utilize these awesome transformative projects.
Thank you. We're going to start with you, Mr. Blanks, on this one. The Midland City Council voted for the city to contribute around $15 million to the Hotel Santa Rita project, mainly through city property tax rebates and hotel occupancy tax rebates. How should the council oversee this project and ensure this investment is worthwhile? Mr. Blank.
Well, there isn't that much room for, as far as I'm aware, there isn't that much room for a negotiation. If when a contract is signed, it's an open and shut deal. But I do think there is some room, and there is like glaring issues with the hotel itself. The plan proposed drawings, it's like a third of the building is going to be just parking for cars, right? Like 2 parking spots can be a studio apartment. It can fit that space. It's such an inefficient use of land, and it's going to contribute traffic directly into the center of downtown. Like, why did the city think that would be a good design, good idea? So see if there's room for renegotiation, and how do we integrate this park with the surrounding city? The hotel with the surrounding city, because we have to deal with it now, so.
Mr. Roberts.
There seems to be this push in Midland for some reason about revitalizing downtown, and it's a push that no normal citizen in Midland wants or cares about. There's a reason all these businesses open up where they open up at. It's because that's where the people are. And to dump all this money into a downtown project seems wasteful at best. This was probably one of the worst decisions Midland's made in my lifetime that I can remember. spending that kind of money on a hotel, a five-star hotel that most people are going to be priced out of staying in, is a terrible idea. You said it was an investment. Investments typically denote that you own something for future gain. The city owns nothing. We're hoping that things work out and it stayed open long term so we can get back tax dollars. But if it doesn't, the city is just out the money. And that's reckless, in my opinion.
Mr. Henry?
Yeah, I agree. 15 million is a lot of money that they're putting towards this hotel. Hotel that I probably won't be able to afford, and a lot of Midland residents won't be able to afford as well. It's one of those deals that's already done, and it's something that one of us will be inheriting. Yeah. And I think if the project goes through, is all the the most the scrutiny, watching over it, watching where every dollar's spent, where it goes, make sure the project's done completely. I'm going to lighten it to the road situation out on I-20. It's been put back to the summer now because the contractor, whoever was in charge of the job, wasn't vetted properly as far as I'm concerned. And so now we've been pushed back because the company can't get the job done. We don't want that to happen on this hotel deal. That needs to be done smoothly and efficiently and make sure that those dollars are spent properly and it's going for a good cause. And it's an equitable share. They spend $15 million on a hotel. Well, let's spend $15 million over on the south side for something or over on the east side for something. Let's make sure it's a fair, equitable trade, again, for the citizens of Midland.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Hang on just a second. Mr. Davidson.
Yes, ma'am. So obviously, I wasn't there for that vote. But whenever I look at the Hotel Santa Rita, I ask the question of, did we need a new hotel downtown? And my answer is yes. We had 2 abandoned buildings that were generating no tax revenue, and we've been able to transform that into a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to revitalize downtown with a brand new hotel. This is a hotel that's going to generate 120-plus jobs here in Midland. It's going to be able to generate $67 million in tax revenue over the next 20 years. The issue is there's been this false narrative that's been pushed that we used our property taxes to pay for this hotel. The MDC used sales tax revenue to pay for this hotel. This is revenue that they've generated from people that don't even live here, that come here to work here, take our wealth, and leave. And we've been able to generate taxes and generate some revenue off of them that's going to help fund this hotel. It's going to create jobs, and it's going to create more tax revenue down the line.
Thank you, Mr. Burkholder.
Sure. I don't have a problem with revitalizing downtown. We've got a beautiful park over there, and we need to utilize it. The problem with the Santa Rita Hotel deal was the fact that there was other options that were available that would not have cost Midland taxpayers any money whatsoever. And we talk about being able to utilize money for parks and infrastructure, things of that sort. MDC money could have been used from some other projects, and we could have still accomplished the goals that we wanted to achieve by having a more fair and robust process of vetting these particular requests for proposals that were sent up to MDC in the first place. Now, if this hotel does go through, which from my understanding still does not have its financing finalized, then it's going to be our job to make sure that we see it through, that we make sure that we hold them accountable for the performance metrics that we're supposed to hit. And if this hotel does not go through, then this needs to go back to a process where we can bring in quality contractors to see if we can get something similar to what we were offered before from some other hoteliers.
Thank you. Mary Kate.
This next question is a viewer question directly from Facebook. I am going to state it exactly as it was written on Facebook. Do you think it is right for prime real estate downtown to get special property tax treatment with incremental tax reinvestment zoning while the rest of us do not? We're going to start with you, Mr. Roberts.
I don't really have that big a problem with abatements and that sort of thing. The Midland downtown property is so expensive, you almost have to do something like that to encourage people to come in and build around that. And if businesses want to do that, I don't see any problem at all with providing those services and providing those discounts for a certain period of time. To me, that's money better spent, or money that you don't have better spent than providing $15 million of taxpayer money to a hotel, for instance. So, if that's the way we want to do business, I have no problem with that. I would even encourage to do something like that as a property tax discount to tear down some of those buildings that are in the downtown area. give them a break for a certain number of years so they can go ahead and tear it down and we can do something else with that land, So I'd be open to all those conversations.
Thank you. Mr. Henry?
I believe that's part of the negotiation process whenever you're looking at bringing in businesses and there's land involved. Of course, the downtown land, as you said, is expensive, and so there are certain, tax agreements and things that may be made. But again, I'm all about being fair across the board. I think everybody should benefit from certain tax breaks and abatements no matter where they're bringing their business in, whether it's downtown, on the south side, east side, or north side of town, and it should be a fair and equitable process that, you take into totality where the land is and everything involved with infrastructure, and there's so many things that you have to look at as opposed to just saying, okay, we're going to give you X amount of tax breaks for this particular property. You need to look at it closely, and again, because you want to make these deals and arrangements to where everybody's happy, including the people that aren't getting them, so they feel when their name comes to the table for some property and a deal to do something that they feel they're being treated fairly as well.
Thank you. Mr. Davidson?
Yeah, so I realize this question really revolves around the Hotel Santa Rita and the abatements that were given to them downtown. And I asked the question of what property tax were we generating from these abandoned buildings downtown? And if we can bring structures, bring businesses, talk about creating hundreds of construction jobs, creating 120 permanent jobs, being able to generate $67 million in additional tax revenue by giving some tax abatements on properties that were abandoned and was generating nothing for the city, then I am all for that. There's a fine line between a yes man and a deal breaker in this town. And we've seen some broken deals that have happened, like Bass Pro Shop, other deals here in town. And I want to go on city council and I want to be a deal maker, ask those tough questions, hold people accountable, but we need to make sure that we are driving businesses here to Midland and we are giving them the best options to employ our citizens.
Thank you. Mr. Burkholder?
Sure. We're missing the mark here. What we're talking about is TIRZ, Tax and Incremental Reinvestment Zones. TIRZ are districts that are set up that they basically lock property taxes, and as the area is built, that property tax is locked, and any additional revenue that's being generated from that goes into a building fund, or depending on how the TIRZ is set up. TIRZ can be a plus and a minus. If the TIRZ is set up properly and is watched over properly, it could potentially be good. The problem with TIRZ is that unfortunately it does lead to some backdoor deals if it's not being watched over properly, and could lead to questionable judgments of building downtown. But the other thing is sometimes these TIRZ take away from other departments like our police department, our fire department, our city services, because they're no longer receiving the tax benefit. Everything is going directly into the building fund. So it needs to be used sparingly. It needs to have a very good structure, and you need to understand what kind of TIRZ that we're even talking about, because there are multiple types of TIRZ districts that you can enact.
Thank you. And Mr. Blank?
I don't think the kinds of taxes that they're using within downtown area are the most intelligent way to tax these businesses. One thing I would like to add is that, why are we taxing, occupancy taxes? Why aren't we taxing vacancy? Why are we taxing businesses that are successful? Secondly, one thing I want to explore is the possibility of using a land value tax instead of normal property taxes, because that's one of the reasons why downtown buildings get abandoned is because it's literally cheaper not to do anything with it, right? Because if you try to improve it, taxes will go up. Why not just tax the land? So that way it actually disincentivizes people from not developing. So that and yes, okay, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Blank. We're going to start with you on this next question, Mr. Henry. The City Council is comprised of 7 people, some of whom you may not always agree with. How would you approach collaboration amongst your fellow council members?
That's what I do for a living. That's my expertise, is how to build and maintain relationships. I'm also an expert at repairing and fixing broken and damaged relationships. I coined the phrase agree to disagree. And that's the important thing. We're all coming to the table with different opinions, and that's why we have a group of 7 people to represent each district. You know, their constituents have opinions and ideas as well as these over here. And there again, it's something important that we need to look at as a whole. And remember, what's the main outcome is what's best for Midland and what's going to be in the best interest for Midland and the residents and the taxpayers. And so it's real important. Again, you know, we're going to, in public, we need to make sure our decorum is kept proper and professional, and we act that way whenever in public. Now, if we get in a session behind closed doors and the feathers fly a bit, then I think that's good for the argument. But in the end, making decisions that are best and proper and leaving our feelings at the door.
Thank you. Mr. Davidson?
Let's face it, nobody is running for city council because they hate Midland. Every candidate up here, everybody sitting on the council loves Midland and wants to do their part to make this a better community for everybody. There are multiple district seats. These are at-large seats. Our job is to listen to the voice of everybody in Midland, to look at every district, see every different project that's going to benefit everybody here in this town. It's not about just isolating ourselves to one district, to one person. It's our job to listen to everybody and communicate that. And we need to collaborate and communicate on city council in order to get our projects done, in order to fund the police and the fire department and fully staff them, because they will protect us and enhance our public safety here in this town.
Thank you. Mr. Burkholder?
Sure. So one of the things working for a Fortune 500 company in senior leadership role is that you quickly learn that people don't always agree. And especially when you're dealing with things on an executive level, you're implementing new plans that sometimes you don't always agree with. And look, there's a lot of contentious arguments that go on behind the scenes sometimes because you're fighting for what you believe in. But the thing is, when it was time to get out on the stage and implement plans, you needed to do it, because if you were going to ensure the success of the company, you had to be a cohesive unit. And you had to find creative ways. If you didn't agree with it, you still had to find creative ways to be able to implement the plans and make sure that you had a message of positivity for everybody, because you don't want to bring people down. And so, again, this is a position where it applies here. There may be things that we don't always agree with, and that's great. We need to challenge each other, because when we challenge each other, we make each other better. And we can have our own unique personalities, and that's what makes each individual person so important on the city council, is to bring their own ideas to the table.
Thank you, Mr. Burkholder. Mr. Blank?
Can you repeat the question?
Absolutely. The city council is comprised of 7 people, some of whom you may not always agree with. How would you approach collaboration amongst your fellow council members?
Well, for the past year, I've been trying to get myself familiar with each member. I've personally met a few, and I attended several meetings. You know, as far as I can tell, you know, as when they talk to me, they're quite friendly and they're easy to get along with. The thing is, you got to remember is that, you know, you're on the same team, right? Politics is not about, you know, your own personal vanity, right? You're working together to serve the people. So that is something that we can keep in mind. Sorry. I would say something else, but I'm kind of improvising. I'm sorry. That's my piece.
Thank you, Mr. Blank. Mr. Roberts?
So I agree with all the other candidates that it is a team. It does need to have some cohesion. I believe all the city council members and all the candidates here truly want the best thing for Midland. There seems to be a breakdown on what those best things are, and that's where the rubber meets the road, as it is. You know, when I look at the former city council meetings of when Mr. Corrales was on there, it seemed like he was largely disliked because he was always wanting the people to want to know more. So he would bring up things for transparency's sake, and it would slow down meetings, and it would do all those kind of things, and it would ruffle feathers. And to me, that's a problem. That's the whole point of the meeting, a live city council meeting, is so that way the people who's our boss, like whoever wins, the people are over us. And so it's best to get their insight and listen to their insight.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. MK?
Transparency has been a focus in many of your campaigns. How do you plan to increase communication and transparency with your constituents? We're going to start with you, Mr. Davidson.
Yeah, so I've had the opportunity to build teams. I've had the opportunity to build business development teams, to lead my organization. And all of that comes down to communication and transparency. This city council has made a lot of strides recently when it comes to transparency and accountability. We are now have a 5-year forecast for our budget. We understand that right now we have a $167 million budget as a city. In 5 years, we're forecasting to $240 million. We've been doing a lot to ensure that we are constantly forward-looking and keeping ourselves accountable. Our city recently finished running their 2023 financial audits, and they found 0 findings. This is the first time that's happened in the last 20 years. So when I start looking at transparency and accountability, I think a lot of that comes back to being able to communicate with our constituents and provide that cohesiveness that seems to be missing here in town.
Mr. Burkholder?
Sure. So transparency is the exact reason why this is not a part-time position. This is a position where you're going to have to spend some time. You're going to have to spend time to make sure that there's transparency with the information that is being given by the city. There's transparency with your constituents, and you're taking the time to go out there and talk with your constituents. You're taking the time to host a town hall meeting. When was the last time we've seen a town hall meeting? You're using social media to visit with your constituents, because the thing is, this is an at-large position, and everybody's voice in this city matters. So you better have the time to be able to visit with those people on every side of town and listen to them about their issues. Be able to be transparent with them, give them the information. You're going to have to dig, and you're going to have to find the information to make sure that they have the right information so they can feel good about decisions that are made in the city council. And it's a huge responsibility. So continuing to visit with constituents, town hall meetings, using social media. We're going to have to get out there. We're going to have to visit with people.
Thank you. Mr. Blank?
What I would like to say is that we actually need to take it seriously, and not just that, put the effort to actually make the information of the city out there and clear for people to understand. Because again, this is something I have personal experience with. When I was trying to do research on the transit system here, not all of it was published. Most of it wasn't available online. So I went to the office itself, which is really not accessible by the bus, between a few hours. That's a side note. But that's where I was able to get in person the report from 2020. And also like historical data is also important. Like there's no archives publicly accessible before 2010 or 2000, and that's important for civic organizations. You want to understand like what do we do before, what actually happened. So yeah, that's what I'll say.
Thank you. Mr. Roberts?
So transparency is something that I'm running on as well. We have a few different problems that we could solve. One is the time and place of our city council meetings. A lot of cities our size hold meetings later in the day, so citizens can actually show up and listen to the problems. I've been to city council meetings where there's like 5 or 6 people in the room that aren't government employees, and that's a problem. And then decisions are made, and they're put out to the people, and then everybody feels a certain kind of way about it, So there is also a responsibility of the citizen to become involved in that way, that you need to know what's happening in your city. You need to know what it is that your city council people believe in, how they want to vote. And we're talking about social media. I'm the only one of the candidates that has a social media page that dates back before Corrales passed, right? So everybody knew this race was coming, and then everybody got on social media. I have a decade or more of social media that you can go on and find out who I am.
Thank you. And Mr. Henry?
Transparency, probably the most overused word in the English language today. As far as I'm concerned, you hear it, but you never see it. What needs to happen is do it every day. You go out and you talk to people, you shake hands. I've been out at Midland Country Club talking to people, and also I'll go down and sit at the Easy Rider bus stop and talk to people and hear what people have to say and share what, the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's the whole deal with transparency is everybody wants to talk about the good things, but then they want to shy away from the negative or the bad issues, and they don't want to talk about it, and they don't want to bring it up, which there's only one way to solve a negative, bad issue, and that's to talk about it and bring it before, and let's get it out in the open. And sometimes it's so difficult to do that and talk about those issues with people, but I don't have a problem calling a cow patty a cow patty. And so I believe that's a big part of being transparent and making sure people trust you and what you say is the truth and that they believe it is.
Thanks, gentlemen. We need to take a short station break. Please stay tuned, and when we come back, we will have more questions for our candidates.
Welcome back to our Midland City Council at-large debate. We are coming to you live from Basin PBS in the Anwar Family Studio. I would like to remind our candidates that the rules, as mentioned at the beginning of our program, still apply.
All right, gentlemen, welcome back. Most of you have full-time jobs. How do you plan to balance your careers and education with your role on the City Council? We're going to start with you, Mr. Burkholder.
Sure. Fortunately enough, being the owner of my own business or of our family's business, I've got good people in place that I'm allowed to be able to hand the keys over, which is something I've currently even been doing for the last couple months, allowing me the time to go out there and put in the work to make this campaign happen. It's extremely important that you have that kind of time. I don't really see how somebody that's constantly working a full-time job is going to be able to spend the time at an at-large position where you're going to be able to visit with all the constituents and really get down to the bare bones of what their needs are. So continuing with that in mind, again, it allows me lots of time, and I'm very appreciative for my people that I have on my team that allow me to do that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Blank.
I don't know if this will inspire much confidence in people, but I don't have a full-time job. I'm currently taking classes at Midland College, so I'm focusing on my education for a bit. I wasn't confident that I would be able to balance a job and taking school. But yeah, I have lots of free time, which means, the upside is that I have all the time in the world to talk to people, research, actually put the effort to, organize campaigns, create a political infrastructure, because it's not just enough to run and try to influence change. You need the entire city, you need multiple people, so you need to develop, you need a lot of people with a lot of time to develop like the actual, lobbyist infrastructure that can endorse candidates, that can inform the public, so yeah, that's something that I can do, that I'm skilled at doing, so yes.
Mr. Roberts.
Thankfully, I work for one of the local churches here in Midland. Before I decided to run, I did talk to my leadership and make sure that appropriate time was going to be given for this. We're fairly active in the community anyway. That's a big portion of what church is actual community. And so I might have to pull back some of my volunteer basis to do this, but I've already been assured that's not a problem taking on this task.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Henry?
I'll be a full-time city councilman. I don't have a job. I'm actually retired. I get a check in the mailbox once a month, so I don't have to worry about getting paid. I'll dedicate 100% of my time to Midland. Midland will be my job. I don't own a business, nor do I own any business interest in Midland. So my business will be Midland. I'll be able to dedicate 100% of my time to the citizens and to the council. I think so many times when council members have jobs, understand they have lifestyles they have to maintain and have to make a living and things like that, but it can also cloud your thoughts at times, when you're making votes and things. Is it going to benefit your business, or is it going to benefit the citizens of Midland? Therefore, those kind of things won't even come up with me because I'll be fully 100% invested into Midland, and everything I do I'll be the guy that answers the phone and responds to the email. And so again, I'll be a full-time council member.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Davidson?
So I have a full-time job. No way to get around that. And so, but I look back, when you think about the original government that was running this country, even from the national level, it was led by people that had full-time jobs. It wasn't until recently that we started looking at people that have leadership roles, politicians, people that are serving in a civic way. They shouldn't have jobs, they should only do that. And I think that's a false narrative. When I think about this city, as mentioned earlier, the median age is 32. The largest age group in this town is 0 to 4. This is a city and community that's full of vibrant, young families. And why wouldn't we want somebody that leads a family, that leads a division in this company to help lead Midland into its next chapter?
Thank you.
The Midland Air and Spaceport is serving more flyers than ever, with about a 15% increase and growing this year compared to last year. With some renovations and expansion plans already in place, how can MAF continue to grow and meet demand? We're going to start with you, Mr. Blank.
Can you repeat the question?
The Midland Air and Spaceport is growing and serving more flyers than ever, with a 15% increase in flyers this year compared to last year. How can MAF continue to grow and meet demand?
one idea I have is to actually integrate it with other transportation. For one, there is no direct bus that goes to the airport, So 'cause the airport is literally just full of rental cars, taxi industries. It's very inefficient to get to both cities. And, there used to be a Greyhound station near the airport. It's gone now for reasons that will take too much time to explain. The airport, needs to be integrated with the rest of our transportation. So that's what I'll say.
Mr. Roberts?
It's my opinion that the airport is inadequate size right now, but that also should be something that's looked at. With more passengers, there's more opportunity for gate fees and all those sorts of things that bring in revenue to the city. So I don't think it's time for talks of an expansion or anything like that, but it is something that we do need to keep a closer eye on. This is also a good time to bring up that the city of Midland has a lot of different boards that it appoints people to. And so the airport board is one of those boards. And so I would encourage anybody that wants to get involved in the city but doesn't want to go through this process to contact the city secretary and find out what boards are available for them to serve on.
Thank you. Mr. Henry?
Midland's always had an international airport, which means it's a hub, so to speak, for flights coming in and out. And it's continued to grow. I remember when the airport was real tiny and you actually used to walk out to get on your flights, and then we finally got some gates. And 4 gates is not enough. We could probably use up to 8 now. I think Delta is bringing in some flights, and there may be some other airlines looking to expand. So we definitely need to look at the long term and the long vision for what Midland Airport is going to bring, and also what the spaceport itself is going to bring. There's been some new action with some things going on out there, and I believe that's an important part of Midland and the growth out there with the airport and spaceport, that we support both, and any expansion with the airport. If we could get a few more nonstop flights to Austin, that'd be kind of nice, but we're working on that one. But yeah, I support any expansion and anything that helps the airport to grow and continue to bring people to Midland.
Thank you. Mr. Davidson?
So nothing in this community is not growing, right? Whenever I look at the airport, I think they've made a lot of good steps to be able to generate revenue from all the new amenities and everything they have around the airport. When I first moved here, the airport was a free-for-all. You would have tractor trailers parking in the grass, everybody would be in the dirt, and the airport did a good job of adding a lot of parking lots to bring in revenue. And so we really need to make sure that we are providing the funds in a way to where we can continue to expand the airport, because this town and this community is the hub of energy in the United States, and we need to make sure that we have the flights coming in that can handle the energy drive in this community. Also looking at the spaceport, this is a crucial aspect of our future diversification of the economy of Midland. We have companies building satellites. We have companies 3D printing rocket fuel. We're about to get the Space Force. There's a lot of activity at the spaceport, and we need to encourage that growth for our future.
Thank you. And Mr. Burkholder?
Sure. So our population has grown immensely. Most recent numbers are around 220,000 Midland alone, and I listened to Mayor Hoven of Odessa talking about the expansion of how many people that they've seen, which is just astronomical. So fortunate enough, our airport has purchased several hundreds of acres to be able to expand, which is fantastic, and to keep from getting landlocked, which is a problem that we run into in Midland quite often these days as we continue to grow. We also see the expansion of the new terminal that we will see in the next few years, which will allow more flights to come in and out. And again, utilizing the spaceport. I'm really excited about the spaceport as well. I think that there is a lot of possibilities. I've been fortunate enough as of recent to be able to have communications with an extremely large aerospace company that is extremely well funded, that is very interested in coming down here to be able to utilize our air and spaceport and some of the licensing that we have. So we need to continue to put focus on that and make sure that we're supporting those adventures out there.
Thank you, sir. In January of this year, Midland posted the lowest unemployment rate in Texas. How can the council help continue to facilitate jobs and job growth in Midland? I'm going to start with you, Mr. Roberts.
If Midland has a problem, the employment rate is the problem. That sounds funny to say, but that's the problem that Midland faces with getting new companies to come, is that there's not enough people to work the jobs that we have. Quality of life, we kind of spoken about that already, is a big factor in that. lack of daycares is a huge factor here in Midland. I happen to be on a daycare board here in Midland, and I was tasked last month of looking at the cost per room, and it looks like to make a certain room profitable, especially for the small babies, it's going to cost like $275 a week that the customer is going to have to pay to do daycare, largely because we have to pay the employees so much just to come to work, right? And so we have a unique situation here in Midland with oil and everything else that we have to juggle, that we have to give the people good jobs that they want, because not everybody wants to work in the oil fields. So.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Henry.
Midland's always been about working. You know, I think that's why most people come to Midland is to go to work. And I think that the low unemployment rate is a reflection of that. You know, if you don't have a job in Midland, you're either independently wealthy or just lazy is the way I look at it. And so there's plenty of work here, and I think that drives and brings people to Midland. And we need to make sure that when they come to Midland that they're getting fair, equal wages, and they don't have to go to work in the oil field, and that there's other options for them to come out and make a living and have a career within the Midland area. And that we're doing things to bring other businesses in as well. And encourage the workers to go to work. I've got some plans and ideas for a trade-type school program to where we can utilize our most valuable resource, and that's our young people that are coming out of Midland, so they can be prepared to go to work in our local workforce and continue to keep those unemployment rates down.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Davidson.
So it's great living in a community with a low unemployment rate, especially a community that also has an exceptionally low homeless rate, and there's a lot of nonprofits that want to fight to end homeless in this community as well. But whenever we start looking at the unemployment rate here in town, we have to realize that the facts are a lot of companies turn down coming to Midland because we don't have the workforce for them to be able to fulfill the job needs that they have. And this comes down to our infrastructure, our child care gap, and the quality of life we have here in this town. We need to hold the city accountable for the infrastructure gap that we have right now. Our roads are not safe. Our infrastructure projects are always constantly behind, and we have to improve those if we want to bring more jobs and businesses to Midland. We have to recognize there's a child care gap. 51% of kids ages 0 to 5 don't have adequate child care, and that keeps people from entering the workforce. And then the quality of life. We need to encourage quality of life projects to keep people here whenever they do move here.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Burkholder.
Sure, I agree. That's why the management of infrastructure and water and looking at the landlocks issues are such a big deal. The thing is, we need to be able to be providing affordable housing. We need to be inviting people to come in and build so these people who are working non-oil field jobs can afford homes in Midland. And as we continue to see that age, the median age of 32 years old be our new average age, again, we need to supply things like these great quality of place projects to draw them there and give them something to do while they're here. The water is another big infrastructure piece that as we're continuing to look at things, we need to make sure that the road infrastructure is there, the water infrastructure is there, and we're providing a place where people can come in and build in a way that allows for them to have, again, affordable housing, affordable childcare, affordable just quality of place projects to come and enjoy here in Midland. So we'll just need to continue looking at the infrastructure issues that hinder the businesses to be able to keep from coming into Midland.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Blank.
I would like to start with saying one thing. No. Okay, so when we talk about unemployment rate, it's a very interesting statistic because it only counts people who have lost their jobs within a certain amount of time. You know, what actually matters is the people who get fired and stay not, that lose their jobs and stay not having a job. And that would be the labor force participation rate. You know, the information's available, but on the top of my head, from at least from 2020, the labor force participation rate was around like 13%. Like I personally had experience trying to find a job. It's it's not as easy. Like dozens of jobs, and even then, not all the jobs are worth working. To be honest, because again, like the cost of living here, so not there's a lot of low entry jobs. There's I'll just leave it at that. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
The Easy Rider bus system is serving 30% more passengers in Midland this year compared to last year. How important, in your opinion, is access to public transport, And how could Midland increase accessibility? Mr. Henry, we'll start with you.
Absolutely crucial. Our public transportation system hauls a lot of folks around. I'm not sure the actual numbers, and I did read the article where ridership was up 37%. What really bothers me the most is the shape and situation of our local bus stops. They're completely unacceptable. Most of them have no benches, no shade. They're not even maintained. Some of them look like they haven't been maintained since they were put in place. To me, that's a big issue for me, and something I've even talked to some of the Motran people. I know there's some monies available currently to help upgrade some of the bus stops and things like that, but people are paying good money for their public transit system, and they need to have quality facilities. The buses are all in good shape. I know we have a hard time keeping drivers from some of the people I speak. But again, that whole public transit system is crucial. A lot of people ride the bus to get to and from work, and so it's really important we keep that and keep it affordable for those riding the bus. I know there's some big areas, and maybe we can get to it one day, where the public transit became free. And who knows, maybe one day we could do that for our people too.
Thanks. Mr. Davidson?
For a city in a metropolis of our size, public transportation is a necessity. We need to be able to encourage the growth in our public transportation sector. That goes back to the quality of life here in this town. And this is a real opportunity for us to collaborate with Odessa, for us to be able to collaborate with other entities to where whenever we are going to improve our public transportation, that the tax burden doesn't just fall on Midland, but it can be shared across this entire region where people utilize the public transportation.
Thank you. Mr. Burkholder?
Sure. Public transportation is vital to a booming economy such as our own. Not everybody here has secondary vehicles, and as we continue to see more families come in, we need to provide more transportation options to them. This is also why it's extremely important to build out infrastructure to make sure that we have these bus stops available in new areas. There's so many new builds as you continue to move north and as you continue to move west and even on the south side of town, which are lacking a lot of these facilities. So it is a huge problem that we need to focus on because we owe it to the citizens of Midland to give them the proper types of transportation to get to and fro work. And especially when we have shortages in a lot of these places, we need to give them those abilities to get to work in a timely manner.
Thank you. Mr. Blank?
Can you repeat the question?
Easy Rider bus, the Easy Rider bus system is serving 30% more passengers in Midland this year compared to last year. How important is public transportation and how can we increase accessibility?
So this has been the focus of my campaign, and what I want to make clear is that we need to, have some clarity in regards to public transit and thinking about it. We can afford to be more ambitious, and we can't afford not to have a good transit system, because, for one, it's essential infrastructure. If we can expand the frequency, expand the convenience of the transit system, that means that we don't have to accommodate as parking, which means that we can build more property on top of it, which means more property taxes for the city. So which funnels out to the rest of the budget. It's an investment. And we have to think about it. We can afford to be more ambitious. We can afford to faster, convenient, longer. Because a lot of people do rely on it, as do I myself. So, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Roberts?
This is one of those situations where I don't mind saying that I was wrong about. I don't know exactly how long the bus system in Midland has been around, but I remember when it passed and thinking to myself as a young man, like, this is one of the dumbest ideas I've ever heard in Midland, Texas. So I'm glad to hear that they're growing. I know over the years, they've increased more stops. They've done Odessa to Midland runs, that sort of thing. And we need to increase those probably. I would like to see some sort of maybe a tax incentive or abatement to where these bus stops are taken care of. If they can't be taken care of by the city, maybe the businesses in front of them can take care of them in exchange for advertising and things like that, because sitting at a bus stop for half an hour in 110-degree heat is terrible, and then when you get to your spot, you still have to walk several blocks, and so that sounds like an absolute nightmare. So adding more bus stops is a good idea. We just have to be strategic about where they go.
Thank you, sir. We're going to start with you, Mr. Davidson, on this question. There are 5 candidates on the stage. What sets you apart and makes you the best candidate for the job? We're going to start with you.
So I'm the only candidate up here that's an engineer. I'm the only candidate up here that's a hydrogeologist that understands aquifers and our water supply. I'm the only candidate up here that runs the business unit for his publicly traded company. I've spent an entire career solving problems, and I want to be able to solve the tough issues like our roads, our infrastructure projects that are constantly falling behind, and being able to enhance our public safety. We need to be able to support our police officers. They work extremely hard, but they are understaffed, and we need to help recruit and retain police officers. Our fire department is constantly working overtime, and we need to help recruit and retain fire department. I've spent a career dealing with complicated budgeting issues, and I'm ready to take those skills to the city council. I differentiate myself from all the candidates up here from my background, and I'm ready to take my skill set to city council.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Burkholder?
Sure. So that's where my 23 years of successful business leadership comes into play. I am the only candidate that has served in senior leadership in a Fortune 500 company. I'm the only one that's up here that understands with one of my businesses the long-term contractual agreements that are written, and the importance of making sure that we have contracts that make sense, to be able to lay those out on a table and understand what the pros and cons of these are, and what the adverse effects are, and what the long-term sustainability of these things are. I'm the only one that's up here that's managed, like I said, literally thousands of people in my career, and allowing me to do that has put me in a unique position to be able to provide experiences that nobody else up here has. And so I hope to use those experiences. I hope to use that business acumen and knowledge and my diverse backgrounds of retail, oil and gas, ranch management, and to bring something great to the city.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Blank?
Can you repeat the question?
You betcha. There are 5 candidates on this stage. What sets you apart and makes you the best candidate for the job?
I wouldn't say the best. I want to be humble. Everyone will do a good job personally. But what I would say is that what I need to be, since I do lack the experience, I do lack a lot of the knowledge other people have. So what is going to set me apart is actually having clear, distinct policies, that are different, and that, issues that are often ignored by other candidates. Because often, this is not a value, this is not like any value judgment, but a lot of people in the leadership simply just don't have experience with like a lot of people have to go through. Most of them don't ride public transit. They don't, have to worry about their kids having to walk to school because they can drive. So yeah, a lot of these issues are really important, and I want to speak to that.
Mr. Roberts?
That's a difficult question because so many of us are good people. By the way, I have hired and fired several thousand people. One year I stopped counting at 400. So, but I would say that I'm so invested in the community. I've been here as long as everybody except Mr. Bull. He's got a few years on me down there.
Watch it now. This is a good debate.
And I do realize that that community is so important that we need to involve the people in our city. I don't know how to lay water pipe or run a police station. I don't know how to do any of that stuff, but I'm confident in the people that we've hired in the city to do those things. What I can do is stand flat-footed and say, this decision is the wrong one or this one's the right one, without having to play politics and games and that sort of thing. So I think that sets me apart in that way.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Henry?
I think it's probably my experience, 44 years in Midland and West Texas. I understand Midland, I understand West Texas, I understand the people, I understand the code. And I talk about the code all the time, about the West Texas code. Some people don't know, but it's always, we worked hard, we played hard, we prayed hard, and we always respected each other regardless. We always watched out for each other. I understand the complexities, again, of a multi-departmental agency like the city, and all the little ins and outs. I understand how to work with all the people and players, how to come to the table to negotiate issues and deals, to find the best solution and talk to folks truthfully and honestly. That's one thing that I bring to the table is the truth, and I will bring it every time. And I have no tolerance for people being not clear and not open and honest about the way they are. And again, as a negotiator and a lover of people, I love everybody till you give me a reason not to. And so I think with that, it helps me would be a good council member.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Did we get to everyone?
I think so. Okay. Yeah.
Well, with that, we are now ready to hear closing remarks from each of our candidates. I would just like to remind you all that you each get 2 minutes for these closing statements and to make your final pitch. We are going to again start in order of ballot. Mr. Henry, we'll start with your closing remarks.
Thank you. And again, thank Basin PBS for having us and all the candidates. It's been a very clean debate. You know, nobody came to fisticuffs over here in Midland County, and so I appreciate that. You know, we've covered everything so much. Your questions were outstanding, and I think all the answers were good. You know, basically, I'm a full-time city councilman. I'll be a full-time guy. I think it's important that the citizens of Midland know I didn't accept any campaign donations, no campaign money whatsoever. This whole campaign was on my dollar and my dime, and that's important because I'm only obligated to the citizens of Midland and the voters. I'm not going to be influenced by anybody who made contributions to my campaign or anything of that nature. And I think that's important because it happens. When people donate large sums of money to elections and campaigns, they do expect a return. Well, in my case, the only return the voters are going to get is the truth and my hard, dedicated work for Midland. And I appreciate your vote on May 4th. Please get out. Everybody's thinking nobody's going to vote. And I want to send a message to all the elected officials in West Texas as a whole that Midland's going to start voting again. And we're going to get the right people in our elected positions to get up there and represent and be the best elected officials we can be for Midland. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Davidson, your closing remarks.
Thank you all for having us here tonight. It's been a real blessing to be able to speak to all y'all that are listening, be able to explain why I want to run for city council and how I want to continue to change this city and hopefully make it a better Midland that we can all love. I love Midland. I love the community that my family has built here, and I truly hope you can see how much I want what's for best for all of us and its people. This is home for me, and I want to ensure that it stays that way for future generations to come. I've always been a solution-focused mind. I want to be able to drive solutions at City Hall, and this is why I was endorsed by former mayors Patrick Payton and former mayor Wes Perry. And I would be blessed to have y'all's vote. This is a special election. It's coming up fast. As mentioned, it's on May the 4th. Early voting starts on Monday. So I want to encourage you to get out because voting for Eric Davidson is voting for someone that wants to make this a better Midland.
Thank you very much. Mr. Burkholder, your closing remarks.
Sure. This is impromptu because it's from the heart. I love my city. I love West Texas. I told you I have a vested interest here. I want to see Midland become the best version of itself it could be. I love people. I love creating new relationships. I love solving unique problems and complicated problems. And I love to see the outcome of what's available or what's to come when we work together as a team. So much can be accomplished. You know, I talk about my leadership abilities, and God's blessed me with something that I should use for greater than myself. He's given me ability to share with the city of Midland, to solve complex problems, to help people. You know, I love being from West Texas. I stand on these values of West Texas principles of honesty and integrity and godly principles. I understand where this city has been. I was here when the oil and gas industry was not thriving. I've seen where it's at today, and I have a vision of where it can go. And it's a great vision that I want to share with my kids. I want to leave a legacy for my family, for other Midlanders, to have something to be proud of. So voting for John Burkholder is voting for a better future for Midland, Texas. Voting for somebody who's going to ask hard questions and expect answers to make sure that we're making the best deals we can possibly make and we can see this city thrive. So again, my name is John Burkholder. Please go out there and vote May 4th. I would love your vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Blank, your closing remarks.
Can you repeat the question?
This is any closing remarks that you would like to say.
I would like to say that I rehearsed in my head, and this is improvised, is that your vote does matter, especially in this election. I say this because, to be the blunt truth, there's a lot of apathy in regards to the government and politics, and like people don't really think anything will change, and it's exactly that attitude is why nothing ever changes. And one thing I would like to add is that Midland is one of the most economically important regions in the country, and we're such a small city, right? If you want to do change in a larger city, you have to potentially mobilize hundreds, thousands, or even millions of people. In Midland, you can just get a few buddies to talk at the council, and they'll hear you out. And especially in the election like this, 5 other candidates, right? It's not majority wins. It's plurality wins, right? So potentially someone who most people didn't vote for who will win the election. It's that competitive. You don't have to win most people. So we have to really gauge the popular will by having people actually participate. So that's what I would say.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Roberts.
I'll keep this short and sweet. So I'm running for city council. I'm surprised nobody in the questions brought up the MDC today. But part of a city council person's job is to do the will of the people. And all I've heard since this hotel has passed is that we need to get rid of the MDC. And what's my stance on that? I don't think the citizens of Midland can do it. I agree that maybe we ought to do it, but our election numbers at the last election were so poor. To get rid of the MDC, you have to have 10% of registered voters' signatures. That's like 9,000 or 10,000 signatures to even put such a thing on the ballot. But all I've heard is people wanting to do this. So even though I don't think it will pass, early voting starts on Monday morning at the annex. I will be out there most of next week. You can come up and I'll have petitions. You can come up and you can sign the petition if you're elected, if you are a registered voter. Even if you don't vote for me, come out, shake my hand, say hi, ask me questions, whatever you want to do. I'll be out there most of the week next week. So I'm kind of curious what the citizens of Midland will do regarding that issue. But I don't mind giving the people at least a chance to get what they want. So.
You all were so concise in your closing remarks that we have another minute or two, and I'm going to ask you another question.
Excellent.
Midland has 667 miles of paved roads in the city as compared to 552 in Odessa. The roads are graded annually on a scale of 1 to 100. The cumulative pavement index for Midland is 69. That would be a D+. Even with the recent road bond, it seems that we are not keeping up. So how would you propose the city maintain roads, and how would you finance it? I'm going to start with you, Mr. Davidson. Okay. Sorry.
No, you're good. So you hit the nail on the head right there. Our roads aren't to the standards that we need them to be. We just finished, or we are finishing up a 5-year road bond that was close to $100 million. And we're looking at that, and all we saw was 5 years of frustration in construction. And we're looking at the benefits of it and now seeing that we need to continue making more investments. Realistically, that same study showed that we need to spend $30 million a year to maintain our roads, and we're just now getting approval for $14 million. That's a gap right there. So the real question is, how are we going to fix this gap while ensuring that we maintain our roads and build out our infrastructure? Because right now it's causing a safety hazard on the roads. Every day we have to deal with this. We almost get in wrecks, people get injured, and it goes back to the holding the city accountable to be able to fix the roads and infrastructure here in this town.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Burkholder?
Sure. I want to add a little bit to that. It's actually 1,086 miles if you include all the alleyways that we have as well. So it's quite a bit. And one thing that most people in the city of Midland probably don't know is we have our own concrete teams and our own asphalt teams. The UV rays of the sun and the West Texas heat kill our roads, and that's why they're in such deplorable shape. It doesn't take long for them to get worn out. I know that the city is focusing on slowly moving to concrete roads, which will last a lot longer and will put us in a much better shape in the long run. I actually proposed an idea to city officials, which they were very receptive of, is if we're going to concrete roads, why don't we build our own concrete plant? It's not that big of a deal. We control our own supply. We control the costs, and we can add those cost savings or pass those cost savings to the taxpayers of Midland while being able to get things done in a timely manner because we have our own supply. I hope that they continue to move forward with that idea because, again, I think they could be very advantageous for the city of Midland and help us out.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Blank?
I would say one simple thing: stop building more roads. So I was there at the meeting, and they said our current budget annually are allocating is $8 million, but we would need to spend $37 million just to maintain a year, just to maintain our current roads. You know, maybe we can start seriously considering maybe. Why would we want to expand even further? Well, why not try to grow inside, within the city, and maintain what we already have? And plus, there's lots of issues with widening roads and how large the roads are. You know, because they're so wide, people are more inclined to speed. It is more dangerous. You know, one thing you can do is that you can try to reduce the roads. You know, skinny streets programs, road diets. You know, that way. They can add, sorry, but yes, I'll end with that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Roberts?
So concerning the new road issue, I would like to take a closer look at what we do with impact fees. When new businesses come to town, they have to pay this impact fee that is supposed to supply brand new roads, but it doesn't really seem like that is an effective there's not effective check and balance there for that. So I would like to look into that. I am very much against debt, probably more than most people that you know, but I don't know how we fix the roads without passing another road bond because roads are so expensive. When Mr. Bokerholder told me about the idea about the concrete plant, that seems like a good idea, but one thing I know is that government is terrible at running business. And so could it happen? Would it be better? Probably, possibly, but that's another thing that you have to keep your thumb on because the government will just leak money if you let them. So,
Mr. Henry?
I've been watching Midland Roads being worked on for almost 45 years. There was the old deal, the Wadley Street project was the one that was always going on. Something that's constant in Midland, and the problem is right now is we're playing catch up. You know, it's unfortunate that past governments didn't have a vision for Midland. You know, back when we were 60,000, when I moved here, our roads were good and accommodated for us, but they didn't look at us when we were 160,000. We need to look at where we're going to be when we're 260,000, 360,000, and try to get on top of it. You know, if you've ever been to Austin, you know Austin, they're so far behind because they got behind on their infrastructure and their road projects, and they're going to be playing catch up forever. I don't want Midland to have to be playing catch up. The best way to is appropriate the funds and get out there and get crews working and finish a project, you know, before we move on and start new ones. I'm all about multiple projects being going on, but let's get something finished. Make sure our contractors are properly vetted and we've got good crews doing this repair work.
Thank you, gentlemen, so very much. And with that, we conclude tonight's debate. I'd like to thank all of our candidates for participating in this special election for the open at-large position of the Midland City Council. We urge all registered voters to cast your ballots. Early voting begins Monday, April the 22nd and continues through the 30th during regular business hours at the Midland County Elections Office at 2110 North A Street with the special election on May the 4th. We'd like to thank the Elizabeth Yeager family for their generous support with programs made possible by you, our members and viewers. If you aren't yet a Permian Basin PBS member, we would like for you to become one. So please visit our basinpbs.org for details. We'd also like to thank the Basin PBS board, the staff, and crew for tonight's program. I'm Becky Ferguson, and on behalf of Basin PBS and my co-moderator, Mary Kate Hamilton with CBS 7, thank you and good night.